What if 3 months without alcohol didn't just make the body feel better, but actually change the way it functions at a biological level? Most people who stop drinking expect some improvement, better sleep, maybe more energy. But the science of what actually happens inside the body over 90 days goes much deeper than that. Multiple systems, the brain, the liver, metabolism, don't just recover, they recalibrate. Understanding the timeline of these changes reveals something important about how the human body adapts and why 90 days specifically appears to be the point, where short-term recovery becomes long-term reset. Before anything improves, something interesting happens first. In the first 72 hours without alcohol, the body doesn't quietly settle down, it reacts. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It works primarily by enhancing GABA, the brain's main calming chemical, and suppressing glutamate, which drives alertness and activity. When alcohol is consumed regularly, the brain adapts. It compensates by producing less GABA naturally and increasing glutamate activity to stay balanced. So when alcohol is removed, that balance is suddenly off. The brain has been running with its own calming system turned down. Now, without alcohol filling that gap, glutamate surges. The result? Elevated heart rate, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, and in some cases, tremors or sweating. This is withdrawal, and it happens because the brain was already compensating. The discomfort in the first 72 hours isn't a sign that something is going wrong. It's a sign that the brain had already reorganized itself around alcohol. The body is just catching up. Here's something that surprises most people. In the first week without alcohol, sleep often gets worse before it gets better. Alcohol is sedating. It causes people to fall asleep faster, which can feel like good sleep. But it disrupts the architecture of sleep in ways that aren't obvious. The most important stage of sleep for brain recovery is REM, rapid eye movement sleep. This is when the brain consolidates memories, processes emotions, and performs critical maintenance. Alcohol suppresses REM sleep. It pushes the brain into deeper non-REM stages early in the night and prevents full REM cycles from completing. When alcohol is removed, the brain tries to recover the REM sleep it missed. This is called REM rebound. It can cause vivid dreams, restless nights, and broken sleep. This phase is temporary. The brain is relearning how to sleep. By the end of the first week, the most acute disruption begins to ease, and the foundation for real sleep recovery is being set. While the brain adjusts, a different system is already doing heavy work, and most people never feel it happening. The liver is the primary organ responsible for metabolizing alcohol. When alcohol enters the body, the liver prioritizes breaking it down above almost everything else. This matters because the liver has a long list of other responsibilities: regulating blood sugar, processing fat, filtering toxins, producing proteins. When it's busy with alcohol, those functions slow down. Heavy or consistent alcohol use can lead to fat accumulation in the liver, a condition called alcoholic fatty liver disease. In many cases, this develops without noticeable symptoms. When alcohol is removed, the liver begins redirecting its resources. Research shows that fat accumulation in the liver can begin to reduce within the first 2 to 4 weeks of abstinence. Liver enzymes markers that indicate how hard the liver is working begin to normalize. Inflammation decreases. The liver is one of the few organs capable of significant regeneration. By the end of the first month, that process is already underway in measurable ways. Sleep is improving. The liver is recovering. But what's happening inside the brain at this point is where the experience starts to shift in a more noticeable way. The GABA and glutamate imbalance that caused withdrawal symptoms in the first days doesn't simply snap back to normal. It takes time for the brain to rebuild its natural signaling balance. But by 2 to 4 weeks, that recalibration is progressing. GABA activity begins to stabilize. Glutamate levels regulate. The nervous system starts spending less time in a heightened state. Dopamine is another key player here. Alcohol triggers a surge of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. Over time, the brain reduces its natural dopamine production to compensate. This is why heavy drinkers often report feeling flat, unmotivated, or unable to enjoy everyday activities. The brain has lowered its own baseline. After 2 to 4 weeks of abstinence, dopamine regulation starts recovering. Activities that were previously dull begin to feel engaging again. This is where many people report a shift in mood and motivation, not as a dramatic change, but as a quiet return to baseline. The brain is no longer depressed. It's recalibrating. By day 30, the changes are real. But this is where most people underestimate what's still happening. Alcohol has a significant effect on metabolism. It contains 7 calories per gram, more than carbohydrates or protein. And when it enters the body, it jumps to the front of the metabolic line. The body burns alcohol before fat, before glucose, before anything else. This has downstream effects. Fat metabolism slows, blood sugar regulation becomes less efficient. Insulin sensitivity can decline with regular use. Beyond that, alcohol affects the hormonal systems that regulate hunger and satiety. It suppresses leptin, the hormone that signals fullness, which is part of why drinking often leads to overeating. As weeks pass without alcohol, fat metabolism begins to normalize. Insulin sensitivity improves. Leptin regulation becomes more stable. By 90 days, the metabolic environment has had enough time to fully shift. Blood sugar becomes more consistent. Energy throughout the day stabilizes. Cravings for sugar, for processed food, even for alcohol often decrease noticeably. This is a key distinction. Those reductions in cravings aren't happening because of increased willpower. They're happening because the biological disruption driving those cravings has been removed. After 3 months, sleep is one of the most measurable differences in the body. And the science of what's changed is specific. Sleep moves through stages and cycles throughout the night. Light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep each serve different functions, and each requires the previous stage to complete properly. Alcohol disrupts this architecture throughout the night. It compresses the first REM cycle, fragments deep sleep in the second half of the night, and reduces overall sleep quality even when total hours appear normal. By 90 days without alcohol, studies show that sleep architecture has largely normalized. REM cycles are consistent and complete. Deep sleep is stable. The brain moves through its stages without chemical interference. This is why people at the 90-day mark don't just report sleeping better. They report feeling different in the morning, clearer, more rested, more mentally available. After 90 days, the brain is no longer recovering sleep. It's completing it. All of these systems, the brain, the liver, sleep, metabolism, have now been recovering in parallel. But there's a larger pattern worth understanding. The human body operates through feedback loops. When a substance repeatedly enters the system, the body adapts to accommodate it. That adaptation is how tolerance develops. It's how dependency forms. And it's why removal can initially feel worse before it feels better. But those same feedback loops work in the other direction. When a disrupting signal is consistently removed, the body adjusts back toward its baseline. The adaptations that were built around alcohol begin to unwind. Systems that were compensating start functioning on their own again. This process isn't instant, which is why 30 days shows improvement. But 90 days shows a fundamentally different baseline. Chronic inflammation, which alcohol promotes throughout the body at low levels, has had time to significantly decrease. The immune system operates more efficiently. Cellular repair processes, slowed by ongoing inflammation, have more resources available. Research also suggests that at the 90-day mark, the risk of relapse begins to decline. Not because the desire disappears, but because the neurological patterns that drive craving have had enough time to weaken without reinforcement. 90 days isn't an arbitrary number. It's approximately the time it takes for the body's major adaptive systems to move from acute recovery into stable function. The changes that began in the first 72 hours have had time to compound, stabilize, and become the new baseline. At 90 days without alcohol, sleep architecture is fully restored. Brain chemistry has recalibrated. Metabolism is operating without chemical interference. The liver has made measurable progress. Inflammation is lower. The nervous system is no longer compensating. None of this required adding anything new to the body. It happened because something that was repeatedly disrupting normal function was removed, and the body, given enough time, did what it was designed to do. It reset. That's what 90 days without alcohol actually does to the body. Not just improvement, a completely different baseline.